actually petting cows and letting, especially a calf, if you put your entire hand inside of the calf while they're, of age. What? And they will like lick your palm as if it's their mother's teeth, and it's a gorgeous feeling because cows' tongues are very slimy, but yet kind of like cat-like. I love cows. Cows are beautiful animals.
I thought you just said you didn't care about the animals.
No, I still eat a cow for a burger or what. Hello guys and gals and all non-binary pals. Welcome to Films and Fika, the podcast where we drink coffee and talk about movies. Today, Portrait of a Woman on Fire.
Lady.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Lady.
Portrait of a Lady on Fire. A French movie, which is glorious. I remember very vividly when it came out, and I was like, saw the trailer in cinemas and was like, oh, I need to watch this movie. So it's very sad that I haven't seen it until now, actually. But I guess it's on streaming services. Then again, I saw it on a streaming service on my 27-inch monitor. And I was so depressed of like how like I know I shit talk theaters a heck of a lot. But this is a movie which I would have loved to see in theaters, just because I know that I would be so devoured without any distractions, and the journey it took me through watching it on a streaming service, it would have been a great ass experience in theaters. And I think I should take that to heart and make sure to watch movies like this that I know, movies that you go out and like, this one I need to watch in theaters. I need to do it. Actually doing it instead of just saying it every single time. Damn.
I agree on every count. I had the opportunity to see it in theaters, and it blew me away. And it was one of my favorite movies of that year. And honestly, I'm very excited that you got to see it, and I'm very excited to hear what you gotta say. I feel like we're both gonna nerd out on this a little bit, just because
it's one of those
we tend to.
It's for once a pretentious film festival type of movie that we review on the podcast, but for good reason, because it deserves the kind of like attention he's gotten. Or actually, that's a question. When it comes to the theater release, I guess for once, Sweden is very behind with its movie releases more commonly, but it was a very big released and hyped up theater release. Did you have the same experience?
I saw it in a film festival.
Oh yeah.
But I remember it being more like, let's call it out there. For me, yeah, here in Mexico, I would say it was like it was more openly announced than other artsy films. And I think the same thing happened in the US, especially with like Neon helping the distribution of it, like they did with Parasite.
Okay. Okay. It was the same distributor. Is that what they are?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then now, obviously, with Portrait of a Lady on Fire, in the US you have it available in Hulu, and you guys apparently also have it on streaming. So it's pretty easy to access. And I think that's really cool, because I do think people should watch this film. I'm not sure if it's for everyone, but I think I do think I really enjoy it. And honestly, after watching it a second time and loving it so much, I am more open to giving Call Me by Your Name a second watch.
Fuck yes.
Like a second opportunity. But we are talking about Portrait later.
No,
in the episode.
there are so many opinions you have on movies that I fully strong-heartedly disagree with, and most of the times
Yeah.
I'm a little bit too verbal with my disagreements of you. Call Me by the Name, however, is baller. That's all I'm gonna say right now. I don't know, I'm just interested with movie releases being in Europe, and because everything with subtitles seems to not have the same appreciation elsewhere, or at least in the US.
What?
That's rather what I mean.
Okay, yeah, I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
So how are you, Mao?
I'm good. I'm just trying to survive.
Wow.
I'm honestly tired most of the time. Work's taking a lot out of me, and I'm just tired most of the time. And we're about to go into what they call, like, I don't know how Sweden is handling COVID
Protocols.
I don't know how to call them. Protocols?
Restrictions?
Sure. I guess. Like for us, it's a stoplight. So green. Well, they have orange.
You're talking
so
about
I guess,
stages or
yeah.
Yeah, there's a word for it.
Yeah. But anyways, we're coming out. Today's the first day, or yesterday was the first day of green.
Well,
which means that most things open back up. Still with not full capacity. Capacity is still limited. But like even some schools are opening for in-person classes. And I'm excited. I'm excited to go back to actual normal, right? Not all this new normal bullshit that we dealt with through the year and change because it's fucking June. So yeah, I wish it's like I just want normal to be normal and just live my life.
I don't remember if I asked you this on air or not, but hypothetically, if in a magic Thanos snaps his fingers and instead of killing half of the population, it's like the restrictions are no more, it never happened, everybody is safe to go back to normal tomorrow, what do you do first?
Travel. Which is fucked up because I can't even travel at the moment because of my job. But
I thought it would be more partying directed.
I do miss partying. I'm not gonna lie. But no, traveling for me is really important.
Fair enough.
And
yeah,
traveling, thankfully I've been very lucky to have travel as a very constant option in my life. And whenever I need a break, I travel. And I've been like, it doesn't have to be like a huge journey or anything, but like something about being on a plane really centers me, I guess. So yeah, I would travel. I can't fucking wait.
Being on the plane is the worst part, if you ask me.
I love planes. I love I don't know. I really enjoy being on a plane.
I can agree. I'm not a person that enjoys traveling, but I feel like COVID aside, this is like sort of like growing up. Next year I'm turning 25, so I've been, my constant life anxiety, you call it a life crisis.
Yeah, quarter life.
With my constant life crisis, I feel like, I've always had New Zealand and Iceland on my bucket list. Maybe I should actually do it. So I don't know.
Yeah,
we'll see. But hopefully, hopefully, if I get some time over by the end of this fall, maybe take a train around Europe. Because honestly, that's the thing. I don't know if you ever did it when you were Euro tripping or anything, but tickets below age of 25 is so cheap. So I feel kind of cheated by the fact that the past like 1 year I haven't been able to travel throughout Europe because it's like I don't know, 150 USD to get a week in all of Europe. Of course, supported train services, which isn't as convenient as it sounds, but yeah, I don't know. I can agree with you, kind of. I feel like traveling, not for the same reasons, but yeah, yeah. Other than that, I'm kind of like just slouching today. I'm having an off day.
Yeah.
Allowing myself to not do the dishes, piling that up till tomorrow. Hopefully tonight, because if not, tomorrow is gonna be a mess to clean.
Yeah.
But you know, just one of those days.
Those are good days. To be completely honest, those are really nice days. And but yeah, I don't know. I think travel is the one thing for me. Yeah, travel for sure. And then because in this hypothetical world, I could just like, it's done, right? So I could come back and party my fucking life out.
True.
After I traveled.
Yeah. It's more like, no, I guess traveling would be more of an urgent thingy situation, for sure. I would like for you to go with your recommendation first this week.
Okay.
For once, because I can't always carry this relationship. I'm tired.
Yeah, so it's Pride Month, and you and I always talk about representation as much as we can. I think it's something that really interests you. Female representation, specifically, I think in your case, is something that you really like. And
I think it's important, yes, but especially since the context that we usually talk about is in movies and how lacking representation is, then I think
for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Something that I want, and that you and I have spoken about before, is that for me, LGBT representation, LGBTQ plus.
I think they even added another S to it, something. It's getting out of hand. I'm sorry. I love everything you stand for, but the letters, man, they're just piling up.
Yeah, it's getting to be a mouthful. But okay, so the LGBTQ plus community, I don't think will be fully properly represented until we start getting more characters, like we did in the Mitchells versus the Machines, where it's like their sexuality is not their only trait, right? And their sexuality is not their only story to tell. Don't get me wrong. I think coming out stories and all the, let's call it the bigger portion of LGBTQ stories right now, those are very important too. But I like the idea of a story where their sexuality is not their main focus. I think even though Portrait of a Lady on Fire is a love story, it's a really good example of this, where the story doesn't hinge on them, you know.
Exactly.
It's more about the love that they have for each other. And another movie that I think is a movie with LGBTQ plus characters that I really enjoy is The Favorite by Yorgos Lanthimos. And so I revisited it because I wanted to see if it held up. And it's really funny and it's really cool. I love the period aspect of it. So yeah, if you're interested in a period piece with LGBTQ plus representation, I would highly recommend it. I think it's really good. Also, Yorgos Lanthimos is fucking amazing. We talked about him. We've talked about him before on the show, and honestly, he's just really good.
I was literally about to say, I forgot it was Georges that made that one. But I remember you talking about of The Favorite very fondly when it was released. So I'm happy it holds up. Indeed.
What do you have for us, Algot?
Well, the movie of this week today that we're talking about, Lady on Fire, is a great movie, and of course there's no surprise that it's about an artist. And you know what I really appreciate about the movie itself is that we actually get to see what she's painting up close, and the process is followed through very nicely. So naturally there's a person that actually painted and know what they're doing, and through watching a video essay on the movie, I realized that the works by this artist, Hélène Delmaire, something along those lines.
Yes.
She's gorgeous, or her works are gorgeous. She's gorgeous too, but like, wow, this is so cool. Of course, it's more of a, what would you call, traditional approach to art. We haven't really spoken about art, but I love traditional art as well as movies.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very much in the same essence of the movie, whereas faces are not always descript, and faces are removed in certain cases, like the one work where one face is entirely scratched out. That's something that's the essence of that, and the message of that is kind of applied to her own works. And so for the video version of this, just scroll through the Instagram here and look on screen, and all of these amazing works that I absolutely adore. So that's something that I just picked up today, and man, there's a lot of good stuff in here. And yeah, the artist of the paintings in the movie that we're going to talk about now, made by Hélène, are some of my newfound favorites. Absolutely gorgeous works.
Mm-hmm. I think she's amazing, and the director Céline Sciamma found her on Instagram, and she was just like, "Yeah, no, this is who I want.
Really,
this is who I want for the movie."
And it makes sense, right? Because
yeah,
they talk about a lot of the same things in their respective mediums.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Great recommendation. I'm really happy.
And I thought
You're very
it's
artsy.
I know. Art where I find traditional art is something that I have periods of just obsessing about this one artist and learning everything about their personal life, etc., and reading up on all their different works. Yeah, that's a part of my approach to art, I guess. I don't know.
That's awesome.
I thought it was gonna work nice as a transition into the movie, so let's go.
Yeah.
A Portrait of a Lady on Fire.
And we're back. For those of you joining us only for the movie talk, hello, welcome. How are you? The rest of you have been here from the beginning. Hopefully, maybe you skimmed. I don't know. We're not very interesting at all.
Maybe we're just on in the background while you clean. That's okay too. I also need company during these lonely days.
For sure. And if that is the case, you missed a spot, and you should go back and check.
Nice.
We're talking about Portrait of a Lady on Fire. It's a 2019 French film, directed and written by Céline Sciamma. It stars Noémie Merlant, Adèle Haenel, and I would like to mention the cinematographer as well,
sure.
Mostly because it's insane. Also, more women cinematographers, please, because I don't think I've seen a women cinematographer whose work I didn't enjoy. So the cinematography was done by Claire Maton, and yeah, this movie, it's about a painter played by Noémie Merlant. Her name's Marianne, and she is tasked with the job. She's tasked with the job of painting Eloise without her knowledge of it, because this is the 18th century, and well, there were no pictures. So when you were being married off to a random dude in another country, that guy needed a portrait of you to agree to the transaction. So that's the basic plot of the movie. And I got 5-minute non-spoilery review.
Like I have no words. It's that kind of a film. It's great. I do believe that everybody should watch it. I think there's so much to take from it in so many ways. I have no words, and that's gonna have to say it for me. I think that's partially because I wasn't really prepared, but it's a great film in my opinion. I'm excited for this talk, and maybe we'll see where my with my rating, where it ends up. Essentially, I might give it a little bit more if there's things that we talk about that I appreciate even more about it, because I already appreciate so much of it.
I think it's really funny whenever our conversation either makes a film's rating go up or down, because it's happened. Both things have happened, where it's just like, oh yeah, you're right.
I think it is part of movies, though.
Yeah, for sure. In terms of a quick non-spoilery review, I enjoyed it a lot. I think there's so many things that the movie's trying to say, so many different aspects of the movie to analyze. I think it's also a fucking masterclass in how to use the visual medium of film. There's really not a lot of dialogue, and even the dialogue that is very specific. And I think that as we get into our conversation, it's just really amazing what Céline and the two actors and the rest of the crew have managed to do with this film, and all the different tools that they use to make it what it is. And I think it's definitely worth a watch, subtitles and all. So with that, let's jump straight into the spoilers. This is your spoiler warning. If you don't care about the spoilers and you're deciding to stick around, thank you. Hope you enjoy it. We sometimes talk about the story linearly, but not always. We kind of just jump around. And Algot, tell me what you like the most about this film. What's the thing that stuck with you the most?
The approach to love. I don't know how to say it, but as we touched on earlier, it's a movie about love and nothing else. The way we see these two people fall in love is very real and very hypnotic. You're just stuck there, and of course it's a straight up Romeo and Juliet. The approach it has with the subject that is love with the movie, essentially, because that is what it is. It's a movie of love, and I love how you follow these two people falling in love. I love the way their love for each other is portrayed on screen, progression of that, and honestly, like, after having seen a few, I haven't seen a full interview to be fair, but a few clips from a few of them, I'm in love with the director. After this, she's such a cool woman. She talks about love in this movie. As simple as that. She says it is a movie about love, the memory of love, the politics of love, and the philosophy of love. That's really the heart of the story, and that's really what I appreciate the most. Because it was, refreshing to see it in this light in very many ways. In the case of the quote there, it's like the memory of love is when they collected drawings and memories actively to remember each other by, as by the end, of course, it is a bit of a Romeo and Juliet kind of a story where they don't end up together naturally. And I think that's always clear from the beginning of the movie. It's never really a surprise. And so with that in mind, it's lovely to see how we go through it all until that point, and how they deal with it at that point. Yeah, a bit convoluted, but that's basically the thing that I like the most about the movie, for sure. Yeah. Do you have any specific part of it?
If we're talking about the movie specifically, yeah, I think there's something about how it's structured and how the story's told that, like you said, we know that they don't end up together, for whatever reason you want to call it, historical context or preconceived notions of what's going to happen. But I like that there's movies about doomed romances, right? We saw it in the with In the Mood for Love, or I would say Her. But for me, this wouldn't be necessarily a doomed romance. I think
Indeed.
It's not about the heartache and the pain of not being able to love someone. It's about the moment of love and fully living that moment and then carrying it with you. Because I don't necessarily feel that, and I'm jumping way ahead here, but I don't think that by the end of the film they're unhappy with their lives.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they're unhappy with the fact that they're not together or any of that sort. It's more of like a very heavy nostalgia, obviously, when certain things come up, but I don't think they're necessarily miserable or so yeah, I think it's a really interesting take on that.
To me, what really wrapped it up for me was that last shot. That's when that's the time when I fell a tear and everything, because honestly, the beginning, or actually the first, talking about the two extremes of opening and closing a movie, this one really does it well, in my opinion. I love movies that throw you right into the action and doesn't really give much explanation. Not that this one does necessarily, but it's a different approach than your necessarily modern movie that does it. So this one sets it up nicely, especially with the title, the intro titles. Do you call them that? Opening titles, I think.
Opening credits.
Yeah. And the strokes of the pen, like, there you go, they're artists, whatever, they're women, we're in the future. It's very clear as we then get a very strong flashback to a different era. And all throughout the movie, we have in the back of our head the portrait of a lady on fire, right? I was just waiting for the moment when they were actually gonna paint that picture, which we ultimately never get to see.
Yeah.
I don't miss it because it's always in the back of our head, and we know that the piece itself has such a strong emotional impact on you on first glance, and it kind of like wraps. It summarizes the story that we're about to experience very nicely in just one piece. Same thing as with the ending, very strong emotional impact and long lasting shot. In this case, rather though, with a musical piece. Summarizing, or in front of us we see, is it Emil? No, I forgot her name already. This is going to be
Eloise.
difficult. We see Eloise going through her emotions, and to me at least, I was thinking back of the entire relationship. It wouldn't surprise me if her as a character would do the same as Flight of the Bumblebee out of all of the scores or music was playing. Gorgeous.
It's so fucking good, honestly. Because I think, and this ties back to what we were saying about like how it's portrayed and how the love story unfolds. They don't get this huge like dramatic goodbye scene, right? Like mostly because they're not allowed to have one, right? Because first they're on their last night they're together and they're talking, and then they fall asleep.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they wake up, Eloise's mother's already there. So they don't really get a chance for that. And I feel that in some way it leaves like a very nice moment in their lives where it's not, like it started a little bit rocky because it was a little bit awkward. And then the whole thing with the painting happened, but then they just have this period of time where they're really happy with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not until the end where we get that, let's call it like stereotypically more dramatic scene of a romance film. And even in that, it's not stereotypical at all in its approach.
Yeah.
We're just holding this shot on her as we see all these emotions kind of rush at her. And honestly, that I cried. It gets me. It got me both times. I thought it was such a powerful way to end a movie too.
Mm-hmm. I think it's kind of funny just how rare it is, but you were talking about that last scene when the mother is already there. There's also one of the few males on screen, or rather should I say it's 1 out of 2 of the males that have any dialogue in the movie. The courier that picks up the painting to get it delivered, as well as a person in the intro that's just like, go beyond the hills and over past the trees, essentially. Like, those are the only 2 male talking characters for sure.
And I feel like it's a really interesting contrast when you've spent most of the film, like really like 95% of the film, with these 2 women and with Sophie as well, and then with the women that live in the village.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end when we're with Marianne and she talks about the first time that she saw Eloise again, and she's at this art gallery and suddenly there's men everywhere. Honestly, it kind of took me aback for a second where it's like, oh right, no, like there are men, you know. And
and there is a third one actually in that gallery. I have to correct myself.
Oh right, yeah. He talks to her too, for sure.
But you know, it's nice to see how extreme of what we're used to seeing it is. Yeah, because it doesn't need to be, right?
For sure. And but I feel like it comes down to the fact that, you know, Céline is trying to say something. And I like the idea that she said she's not necessarily making a feminist movie. But she's much more trying to make a movie about equality. And I think equality is such a big part of the movie as well. Where it's like, as soon as Eloise's mom leaves, the 3 women who are left, so Eloise, Marianne, and Sophie, they all interact as equals. And we get a little bit of this from the beginning of the film when, you know, Marianne asks why Eloise wanted to live a life in a convent. And she's like, well, equality is a very pleasant feeling.
There you go.
And of course, like in a convent, of course you're equal. You know, you wear the same clothes, you eat the same food, you listen to the same music.
Yep.
So then when they finally get to interact with like between each other, all 3 of them, and you even see how at some point of the movie they switch roles where Eloise is helping making the food while Sophie's like working on her embroidery, and it's like, there's no like power struggle within their interactions between the 3 of them.
No, rather,
and you see that
I find that there's a sort of like meeting halfway between Eloise and Sophie in a way, since Eloise have to this point taking Sophie more or less for granted as a servant or something like that. At least that's the impression that I get.
Okay.
That when they find themselves, or rather maybe even when Sophie finds herself in the need of help, the scene when they're on the beach and she's running in between the 2, which I have no clue how that's going to help a pregnancy, but I guess it was a different time. Sophie is not expecting Eloise to lend out a hand, but so she does, and I think that's like the turning point in their relationship. My minuscule,
and I feel that's like it's talking about sisterhood and sorority in ways that are not, like I said, it's not necessarily like a very in your face feminist film, but it is about women sticking up with each other, and in a very I don't even know how to call it. It's just like, it's very, I think I figured out. I think a lot of the way that the movie works and is represented is different to what we're used to, just because it's not gazy, like it's not a part of that narrative. So because it is such a different thing than what we're used to, it is just so refreshing all the time. It's so refreshing to watch the interactions between all of them. I think it's really cool. I really enjoy it.
No, because when it comes to, is lesbianism a proper term? It sounds wrong to say. When it comes to a lesbian couple, we saw that in that one movie we actually had on the podcast. I feel like The Handmaid's Tale falls into it a little bit too. There are better examples that escape my mind currently, but there's such a big it's such common for movies, directed by men, to have the female gaze, in this case, right?
With you're talking about the lesbian couple in Basic Instinct, I think.
And how lesbians oftentimes in movies, since everybody who is portrayed on movies have to be so beautiful for some reason, but my point is that lesbians are all often fetishized, and there's a heavy male gaze on how we see females, even though they interact with other females. I feel like this movie almost, it feels sexual, but that might just be because I'm uncomfortable with skin showing. But this movie is definitely one of the ones that does it best that I've ever seen, because it's more about the love than it is the supposed sex. I don't know if you even thought about that there are no sex scenes, but I can grant you that you for sure aren't missing them, because there's still, the passion is still there, and that's really what counts.
The passion is there, and also what we get to see is the aftermath, right? Like, we don't the few times that we get to see what happens after sex, it's usually very stereotypical. Like, a guy will pull out a cigarette, or the woman will pull out a cigarette, and they will like share it, and then it's like,
and the woman is always laying on top of his chest, and
and like nothing new necessarily comes from those scenes. I'm not saying sex scenes or post sex scenes have never been handled correctly until this film. That's not what I'm saying, but I am saying this definitely handles them way better than most films. It's just, we don't need to see them having sex for us to understand that they love each other, and that they just had a very intimate moment. Besides, I love their interactions post sex, because it also talks a lot about what we remember, right? Because this is all a memory.
Sure.
And I feel like I don't necessarily know about other people, but for me, it is those moments of quiet that I remember the most when it comes to a past relationship. Like what we used to do when we talked to each other through the night or whatever. Those are the moments that kind of stick with you, because you're getting to know this person, you're getting to really connect.
If there ain't no pillow talk, it's not worth my time, that's for sure. No, but yeah, you're absolutely right. To be clear, I find the moments, but this is a very much of a personal thing. I find the moments when she is drawing her and she puts the fucking mirror right on her crotch, like, that's a little bit cringy to me. Like, who does that? That must be a weird piece of a picture to have in your book in your pocket with a face on top of your but that might just be me.
No, buddy, you misinterpret it. What she's doing is she put the mirror
She
there.
takes her face on top of her, yes. But there's still a mirror on screen on top of her crotch. Right?
I think I love the scenes where Marianne is painting Eloise, because I feel that's really how we see their relationship evolve through these scenes. You were gonna say?
We kind of left the subject already, but talking about female and the portrayal of females, especially in movies, and how poor it is, periods really hit me. Like, she has a period. It's not a big deal because it's just a period. Half of the population approximately has them, right? Mm-hmm. But I just found myself pondering of the question, have you ever seen a movie where a person has had a period on screen? I cannot for the life of me.
Not like this, right? Because there's movies where like Carrie, she has her period.
Yeah, but that's not
graphically. But it's not the same.
Yeah. Carrie is an example, though. To be fair.
But no, I think you're right. Like, it is, and that's the type of go.
And I think it speaks to the culture, the history, something of how the female anatomy is not really portrayed in this case properly or at all, really. You know, there's this entire conversation of like how much screen time contra the Bechdel test of what females actually discuss on screen and all of that kind of thing. But even more so, like the physicality that means to have a uterus and actually having periods is something that usually is just escaped, which is just part of natural life. So why not include it? Of course, it's not really, it's more of a setup actually to reveal Sophie's pregnancy more than anything else.
But I feel like it, when it comes to representation, you're talking about, like, because of course you're not going to show your characters go to the bathroom every single movie that you make. Like, there's movies that don't need it, and we just assume that, you know, they go to the bathroom. But I agree that in this case it's not necessarily that obvious, especially because there is such a weird taboo about women and their period, where it's like, we don't need to talk about it, we don't need to know about it. The only reason why a guy should know about a woman's period is if, you know, they are intimate with each other,
which says a lot, right? That's the only case to care about. Oh, Jesus.
Like, the only time I should care about your body is whether or not you can please me. Wow.
I think it's, to me, it's just one part of the many things that this movie does well. But the female portrayal on this movie is proper in so many ways, periods being one of them, simply.
Yeah. And like, a lot of people might be rolling their eyes at us like, yeah, of course, like, a woman directed and a woman wrote it. But even we've seen film and other movies where females wrote it and females directed it, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they were given the opportunity to portray women as they needed to. You know, I was watching a TikTok the other day, and this girl is talking about how whenever she brings up the lack of representation and of like strong women and the diversity of that, everyone brings up Ripley from the Alien series.
Yeah.
And she's like, guys, it's the worst example ever, because Ripley was written as a man. They cast a woman just because at the time the studio thought that it would be more interesting to have a woman survive because people wouldn't expect it. But they didn't even change the character. She was written as a man. So it's not even like, it's not that she's a bad feminist icon. She's still a feminist icon, but the idea is that it was by accident. Like they didn't actually set out to be like, oh, you know, we could make this a female character. And I feel like that is one of the things that feels really nice about this film, because like you said, it is hypnotic, right? And I feel like a lot of the scenes and a lot of the shots of the film feel like when you are in a museum and you're just sitting in front of a painting and you're just like there, and she and like Céline Sciamma and the editor and the cinematographer all work together for you to feel the impact of those films. Like everything is meticulously calculated, right? And we can talk about rhythm if you want now.
Before that though, I would like to agree with you on the cinematography aspects, because naturally it is a movie about painting a picture, right? So it's not a surprise that the cinematography kind of replicates that in certain shots especially, but overall very much so. But certain shots are just gorgeous. The seaside really helps to bring a sort of, what would you call it, artistic style to it, look.
I don't even know, man. It's just like,
it's beautiful.
It's so well shot, and honestly for a second I thought it was shot on film. They wanted to shoot in 35. But then they made tests with 35 millimeter and then with the Red Monster, both with the same lenses. And the director just thought that it looked better digital.
Like the dark scenes, maybe?
Well, the whole idea of the dark scenes is also really interesting because the lenses that they used are not very sensitive. So they're not actually lit by fire or candlelight most of the time. It's like
a bunch of shiny balls everywhere.
Not even. It's the cinematographer likes big skylight panels and then just layers that cut and diffuse and do all this stuff. And then if she needs extra anything, specifically with the candles when they're moving around, boom poles with LEDs tied to them. It just has a texture to it.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't know what the texture is. I really don't know.
No, I thought the same thing. I hadn't really pondered on it until like halfway through the movie when I saw that one specific shot of her in the green dress by the seaside. As you said, there was a certain texture to it, but up until this point, I haven't really pointed out that there is any necessarily texture, because film texture is more distinguished than that. So I was like, what is this film? No, it's not. It's crazy.
It's crazy, right? And it's shot on digital, and it's not. I think what it's trying to be is, because it's such an important thing for us to know that this is all a memory, like this is all her telling someone, or not someone, but telling us the story of their relationship. And I feel the look just fits really well because of the same reason why they kept pictures of each other, or like drawings of each other, because there was no other way to physically remember someone. Hey, you can take a photo, you couldn't take a video, all of these things that we take for granted. Like if you wanted to remember something, it had this like abstract quality to it, because paintings are not photorealistic most of the time, you know? So then I feel like the whole movie is made to look that way, because and I would have to rewatch it with this in mind, but the scenes where she is back in present day and she's talking about the 2 times that she saw her again, they don't necessarily have that same quality.
No.
That I remember.
And it might be simple as a difference in the grade, a filter, whatever there might be. There's definitely a distinguished difference between the two, though. Yes. As you would, I guess. But the cinematography, the direction, and the editing is the strong suits of this movie. To me, the editing speaks most clear in the scene when they're almost finished and they talk about how they see each other and the small little ticks or traits that they have, both of them.
Yeah, and it goes like, it's such a brilliant scene because it also goes back to this idea of like equality, right? Because Marianne thinks she's in a position of power. She thinks she's the one who observes, and she's the one that, you know, has, let's call it a higher standing over Eloise. But then she's like, no, realistically, if you're observing me, then who am I observing? And then they have this back and forth, and you're just like, yeah, no, that makes sense.
No, right? And they find each other again on equal footing.
Yeah.
I guess rather by halfway through that scene specifically, Eloise is on the more superior than Marianne. But yeah. You probably heard this, but for someone that might not know, that scene was originally intended to be the scene when they actually kiss. But then while writing the script, it turned out to not be the right time or so, which
I agree.
Which, seeing the finished result, naturally makes a lot of sense. But I gotta say though that I'm kind of like fed up with movies and their obsession of having their characters look at each other's lips, because once you realize that every time a person looks at another person's lips, they're thinking about kissing them, movies are kind of ruined after that. With this one specifically, it's fine because, you know, they're teasing you, and it's just one of the first times where they have an intimate moment, and you know, they even talk about later in the film, when was the first time you thought about or wanted to kiss me, rather. That being not the first necessarily, but one of the moments for sure, because they fucking look at each other's lips. It's a commonly used technique, and I don't know.
I think it's commonly used though because we actually do it as human beings.
Do we?
Right?
I need to think about it.
I'm pretty sure we do. But then you come into this conversation of like, what came first? Were we told by movies that that's what humans do before they kiss, or you know, are films informed by the fact that we actually do that?
I will say it's fairly romantic of an action too, subconscious or not.
I feel like, you know, what's really cool about this movie is that you get to watch these two women fall in love, and there's no sense of power within the relationship.
As there shouldn't be,
because,
right?
Exactly. And honestly, maybe this happens more with male gay relationships, but you know, this whole question of like, oh, you know, well, who's the man in the relationship, or who wears the pants in the relationship? And it's like, but A, why? Why is that a question that you're asking? But B, why does there have to be a power dynamic within our relationships? You know, like, why do we have this preconceived notion that that's a healthy relationship when both of them have agency and both of them have a certain power over the other, you know, but not like in a bad way, but like just because they're different people, the power just shifts from both of them instead of always being held by one of them, right? Like maybe Marianne is a little bit more in power when she's painting or drawing, but even that further down the movie, you see that Eloise is the one in power because she's the one asking her to paint, asking her to do her portrait again, and asking her to paint a moment after Sophie's abortion, and you know, I want a picture of you, like all these things.
That scene actually, I didn't really get anything from it myself. Like, do you have any explanation to her clear motive to why she found so interesting with the abortion process and everything? Especially the same night of Sophie to go through and modeling that horrific experience.
I think it has to do with the fact that you shouldn't forget that you have a choice, right? As a woman at that time, at this time, I don't really know. Maybe you're told so many times that you have no choice and that, it's not your choice to make or whatever. And again, because you can't take a picture, it's better for you to just paint that moment in that time. Sure. Especially because for Marianne, her painting is so much based on her emotions.
Yeah.
Like she's not cold about her painting. She very much lets her emotions dictate.
Sure. And that's something that speaks to Eloise, and so she wanted to capture that. Sure.
Yeah. I love that scene though. Like I love the actual abortion scene. And
I hate it because the visuals of the baby right next to her holding onto her hand is just so
That's what I love.
I love the. I know it's nice. It's really lovely.
Such, like, I love when things are contradictory on screen. Yeah. I think. What's the word I'm looking for?
Irony.
Contrast. Like when things are contrasting each other instead of both being on the nose. And I feel like having a baby comfort her while she's having an abortion.
And I mean that's really the reason why I had such a strong reaction of dislike, is because it really pulled my heartstrings. So it's good ultimately. It is.
No, I agree. It's definitely a moment of the film where you're like, shit. Because what if we don't know what's going through Sophie's head, right? Like she's crying and she's in pain, and she's going through this thing. But at the same time, why though? Why is she crying? Did she maybe regret it, or maybe she just doesn't really want to? Like there's so many things about that scene that could be interpreted in so many different ways, that I just enjoy the fact that Céline Sciamma took the time to be like, and I'm gonna contrast it with a baby cuddling her.
To be fair, we don't get the contraception explained like at all.
Yeah.
So one aspect more directorial is the blocking, which kind of stood out to me in a good way. How the two characters, Eloise and Marianne, are up until the halfway point when they actually clearly start to fall for one another. They are always blocked facing the same direction. Of course, Marianne has to turn around almost 180 degrees to get a glimpse of Eloise's face, because she has to draw her face. She's trying to analyze her, but they are never turned against one another, and it's a matter of, I guess, establishing the trust and comfort, and later on there's a much more intimate relationship that they have to one another, rather than a strictly formal professional one.
For sure.
But I did appreciate that, on top of the editing and cinematography that's way more and more passionate and intimate and all of that good stuff. Even the blocking really represents the progression of their relationship.
Yeah, and I feel like it helps with rhythm, right? We talked about rhythm in Roma, which I guess it's not out that it's going to be one of the episodes, but we talked about rhythm in Roma, and how Cuarón uses the camera movement mostly to nail the rhythm of the film. But Céline Sciamma took it to the next step, because she was blocking, camera, everything that they do, the way that they speak, it all comes back to that rhythm, and how, because there's no score to the film other than the music that they actually hear, like the characters, then you need that musicality to come from somewhere else. And I'm sure there's another director who talks about film in musical terms. I just don't remember who. But this idea that
it's certainly not the one that you're thinking of, but Edgar Wright is one to cut to the music quite a lot, even though there isn't any music.
Yeah, for sure. No, you're right. You're right. And the thing is, maybe with Edgar Wright, because there's music, it's not as obvious But yeah, I agree. And there's just there's so much rhythm to everything that she did with the blocking, right? What you said about the steps, where it's like 5 steps feels incomplete, and you have to walk 5 steps to her because you're not certain. You don't know what she wants from you. You don't know why she's asking you to come over.
Mm-hmm.
And she's shifting the power dynamic. So how are you going to respond to that? You know, and it's true. And I feel like it's such a theater thing to think of as well, but it just transfers really well.
It's insane to me how a director will actually direct their talent to take 5 steps contra 3 steps contra 6 steps, because it gives a different energy and oomph to the performance. That's an interesting take that I've never heard about to do.
Me neither.
At least in that way. No. One of the notes that I have here of the thing that I find to be over the top is the hallucinations. Marianne finds herself in the same corridor every now and then, and all of a sudden Eloise in a wedding dress is lit up and then fades away. So that's a hallucination is the best way I can describe it, but it's you know a foresight or whatever, the fear,
well, at least
of her, the thing that she fears the most, yada yada. I get it, but the way it's on screen kind of like it is a little bit on the nose. No,
one of them is definitely a hallucination though, right? Because they're fucking high,
right?
If you were to ask me if it's a little bit on the nose, I would say no.
You didn't mind it?
I would say no. I didn't mind it the second time. I minded it the first time. Because it comes out of nowhere too. And you're just like, what? Like, because everything else is so grounded in reality.
And that one specifically is so artificial. Yeah.
Yeah. But like, especially also what I mean the first time is the first time I saw the movie. But also the first time that she shows up, you're right, it does feel more artificial. But I feel like upon a second watch, you really understand that, you know, when they have the first and kind of like only fight that they go through, where Eloise is like, oh, now that you have possessed me, now that now that I'm part of you, you resent me, you know, you don't support me anymore. And I feel like it's an interesting thing to touch upon, because I don't necessarily think that Eloise is a lesbian, right? Out of the two characters,
sure.
I feel maybe Marianne is more like, her mind's made up about what she wants to do with her life. Like, she has a plan.
Yeah.
Right? Eloise is a little bit more like, they're asking me to get married. I don't want to get married. But that also doesn't mean that she's unhappy with her marriage at the end of the day, you know? We see her happy with a child at the end of the movie.
Is she so happy, though?
I mean, none of the paintings of that era show people necessarily smiling.
The way I see it is that she's quite literally forced into a relationship, finds contempt with it, because what are you going to do? Stick it to the man? No, you would be burnt at the stake. And hence the entire subliminal message of the book in her lap that she places herself to convey what her heart actually feels. I mean, heck, she even goes to the theater alone to listen to an orchestra, which they spoke so dearly of in the beginning. But that's my take.
Fair. That's fair. For me, it's like, I feel Marianne is just clear as to what her emotions are, but she's also the one that speaks about them the least. Right? So having this couple of like little moments where you actually get to see what, you know, what's actually on her head. You know, she does dread the fact that she's gonna fucking leave. Yep. And that she is probably never gonna see her again. So yeah, second time I watched the movie, I didn't mind it as much. But the first time I was kind of taken aback. For sure.
Yeah. Anything else? there is a lot of minuscule things in the movie naturally. Everything from editing choices to directorial ones. There's a lot of decisions that has been made and that come off screen, and you could definitely speak about it in big detail. But I think also a lot of the things have already been covered. Such as the kiss scene. I feel like the kiss scene is glorious, but I don't have anything to add to the conversation myself.
You know, and like for me, the biggest takeaway of this movie is just the amount of attention to detail that Céline had for everything. Like, everything seems carefully chosen and calculated, and I just love when a director goes full, you know, I don't even know how to call it. It's just like, it's art. Like, it's art. And sure, you can make the argument that all film is art, but there is just pieces of work that you can feel the love and dedication ooze out of. And this film just feels like that. It feels like you're just sitting there taking it in. Yeah. And
I feel like it was very nice to see a French movie. It's been a while to see a French movie, but with that more of the European and even so like female director way of making movies. It's a really nice one. Yeah.
I want more of that.
Yes, exactly. I mean, dude, let's look up her filmography and review another one tomorrow
for sure,
dude. After hearing her interviews, I'm in love with that woman. Her approach to filmmaking is so awesome,
and it's so specific, right? Like, I feel that after a while you get to a point where you hear men talk about how they direct and how they come up with film, and some of them overlap, and it makes sense. Of course, you imitate before you create. So a lot of the things do overlap, but it was so nice to hear this woman talk about filmmaking in a completely different way and in a completely different manner. And I think it's just like, she talks about how her previous films, which are set in a modern setting, like how she hates making things set in a specific time, and that she likes making anachronistic movies where it's like, in all three of her previous movies, the characters, even though it's modern day, don't use cell phones. Cell phones tell you exactly where this movie's happening, and so then your brain starts to fill the gaps of the context, and she doesn't want that. She wants you to simply sit and look at the story as it is, without your preconceived notions of what the time around the story tells you.
And in the world of Lady on Fire, the limitation of taking a simple photograph is non-existent, which brings so much more depth to the stakes of a love that's gonna be lost in the future. It's really good. I think everybody would appreciate it. No, maybe not. That's not necessarily true, but I think everybody should watch it. It's definitely a movie that has climbed very quickly up on my list, and I don't know. I'm gonna have to give it 4.5 out of 5 stars. A great film, and wow, takes my breath away.
It does.
That's the best way I can summarize it.
Yeah. Last time I saw this film, I gave it a 4.5 out of 5, and similar to other films, like, I've hold off on rewatching it because I'm like, what if it doesn't hold up, right? Especially because it has a different rhythm, and it has a different sort of, like, it's not something that you necessarily think is rewatchable. But after watching it now, I think not only is it rewatchable, and I want to revisit it again because I think it's a beautiful film and it's beautifully acted and made, but it holds up even more so the second time, and I loved it, and I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 5.
That's good to know. I'm gonna sit on it for a while and rewatch it as soon as it makes sense, I guess.
Yeah, well, and that's the other thing, right? Like, I saw this before the pandemic, so it's been a while since I saw it, and sometimes you need that space.
Oof. Awesome. My cup of coffee is over. I hope that your cup of coffee is over. Maybe if you're listening to this, you have a coffee that is over or somewhat drank. While they continue sipping on that possible cup of coffee, why don't you let them know where they can, what they can do with all of the information in the description? Mao.
Well, down in the description, you're going to find links of our recommendations, whether it's a Letterboxd link or a Spotify link or an Instagram link. You will find those in the show notes. You will also find out that we have a YouTube version of this podcast where you can see our beautiful, stupid faces
mediocre
as we talk. As we talk about film. We also use movie clips and trailer clips about everything that we talk about, and we also have a Letterboxd, both of us individually, where we upload movies that we don't necessarily talk about on the podcast. So follow us there to keep track of what we're watching, and maybe leave a comment. As for the podcast itself, it's obviously on the platform that you're listening on and in every other podcasting platform you can think of. Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Overcast, Anchor. And thank you so much for joining us. If you have stuck around up until this point, and if you're new here, share us with someone that you might know, or thank someone for sharing us with you.
Also, I just want to say that I told Mao right before off air. I told him I just finished the show that I've been watching right now, so now I'm free from being committed to one specific TV show. So if you have any recommendation of any good movies instead that I need to watch, I have lots of time to watch more and new movies. Anything that you might enjoy or anything that you might think that I would appreciate would be greatly appreciated if you would like to share in the comments or anywhere else.
Thank you, Algat, for being here. I've enjoyed our conversation on the portrait of the lady on fire, and I'll see you next time.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate your presence as well.